I was 53 years old when I walked out of the office for the last time. Not because I was tired, not because I hated the work. I left because I could, because I had built something quietly over 26 years that no one knew about. Not my colleagues, not my friends, not even my wife. That last part would matter more than I ever imagined. The retirement party was small, cake in the conference room, handshakes. A plaque with my name misspelled. My wife Jennifer stood beside me the whole time, smiling, making polite conversation with people she'd met maybe twice. She looked proud. I remember that. She looked like she was proud of me. On the drive home, she turned to me and said, "So what now?" I told her we'd be fine, that my pension and our savings would cover us, that we could travel a little, maybe renovate the kitchen. She nodded, but there was something in her eyes I didn't recognize. Not worry, not excitement, something else. "We should sit down this weekend," she said. "Go over everything. Make a plan." I agreed. It seemed reasonable. What I didn't tell her, what I had never told her, was that I had been accumulating company stock since my second year on the job. It started as part of a profit-sharing program. Employees could opt in, and the company would match a percentage. Most people treated it like a retirement account they'd access at 65. I treated it like a long-term investment I might never need. Over the years, I contributed quietly. Never enough to affect our household budget. Never enough for Jennifer to notice a difference in my paycheck. The stock split twice. The company grew, and I kept it all in my name. Legally, it was mine. We lived in a state where assets acquired before marriage remained separate unless commingled. I had opened the account 2 years before we married. I never transferred anything, never mentioned it. I told myself it wasn't about hiding it. It was about security, about having something that couldn't be touched if things ever went wrong. I grew up watching my father lose everything in a divorce. I watched him move into a studio apartment at 59 and start over. I promised myself I wouldn't let that happen, so I kept it separate. And over 26 years, it grew into something significant. Not millions, but enough to retire at 53. Enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life without touching a cent of what Jennifer and I had built together. That weekend, we sat at the kitchen table with our laptops open. Jennifer had printed out statements from our joint accounts. She had a legal pad covered in notes. She was organized. She always had been. "Okay," she said, sliding a piece of paper toward me. "This is what I'm seeing. We have about $210,000 in the joint saving. Your pension will pay about $3,800 a month. My part-time work brings in another $1,200, so we're looking at $5,000 a month, give or take." I nodded. It was accurate. "That's decent," she continued. "But if we want to travel, if we want to help the kids with anything, we're going to need to be careful. We should probably talk to a financial planner." "We'll be fine," I said. She looked at me. "You keep saying that, but I want to make sure we actually are." "We are?" She set down her pen. "Is there something you're not telling me?" I met her eyes. No, it wasn't technically a lie. She was asking about our financial stability, and we were stable. The joint accounts, the pension, her income, it was all real. I just wasn't telling her about the rest. She didn't push. Not then. The first few months of retirement were good. Better than good. I slept late. I started running again. I read books I'd been meaning to read for years. Jennifer kept working her part-time job at the library. She liked it. It gave her structure, she said. And honestly, I liked having the house to myself during the day. We took a trip to the coast. Nothing extravagant. A bed and breakfast, long walks on the beach. We talked about the future, about maybe buying a small place near the water someday. She was happy. I was happy. Then her sister called. Jennifer's younger sister, Monica, lived 3 states away. They talked maybe once a month. Monica had been married twice, divorced twice, and was perpetually in some kind of financial crisis. Jennifer had loaned her money before, small amounts, a few hundred here and there. I never said anything. It was her money too, but this time was different. Monica's car had broken down, the transmission apparently. She needed $4,000 to fix it, or she'd lose her job. She was crying on the phone. Jennifer was pacing the kitchen, her face tight with worry. When she hung up, she turned to me. "We need to help her." I took a breath. $4,000 is a lot. She's my sister. "I know, but we're on a fixed income now. We need to be smart about this." Jennifer's jaw tightened. "We have $200,000 sitting in savings. That's for emergencies. For us, this is an emergency. It's her emergency, not ours." She stared at me for a long moment. "When did you become so cold?" I didn't have an answer for that. She sent Monica $2,000 from the joint account without asking me again. I saw the transaction a few days later. I didn't bring it up, but something shifted between us. Something small. Something I told myself didn't matter. 2 months later, Monica called again. This time it was her landlord. She was being evicted. She needed first and last month's rent for a new place, $3,200. Jennifer didn't even tell me. She just sent it. I found out when I checked the account. I confronted her that night. "You can't keep doing this," I said. "She's family, and we have limits." She turned on me, her voice sharp. "You act like we're broke. We're not broke. You're just being selfish." "I'm being realistic." "No," she said. "You're being controlling." That word landed like a slap. I had never controlled her, never told her what she could or couldn't do. I had built a life with her where we made decisions together. But in that moment, she looked at me like I was a stranger. Over the next year, it got worse. Monica called every few months. Medical bills, credit card debt, a loan she couldn't pay back. And every time, Jennifer sent money, thousands of dollars. I watched our joint savings shrink. I watched Jennifer become more defensive, more distant. I tried to talk to her about it, calmly, rationally. I suggested setting a boundary with Monica, a limit. Jennifer refused. "You don't understand," she said. "You don't have siblings. You don't know what it's like." She was right about that. I was an only child, but I knew what it was like to watch someone drain you dry. I had seen it happen to my father. Our conversations became arguments. Our arguments became silent. We stopped taking walks together, stopped planning trips. Jennifer started working more hours at the library. I started spending more time in the garage. One night, about 14 months after I retired, Jennifer came home late. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table and folded her hands. "I think we need to separate our finances," she said. I looked up from my book. "What? We should each have our own accounts. I'll cover my expenses, you'll cover yours. We'll split the household bills down the middle. We've been married 30 years. And I'm tired of feeling like I need your permission to help my sister. I've never said you needed my permission. Ati, you make me feel like I do." I closed my book. "If that's what you want." "It is." We opened separate accounts the following week. We split the joint savings evenly, $153,000 each. My pension went into my account. Her paycheck went into hers. We calculated the mortgage, utilities, groceries. Split it down the middle. She paid her half. I paid mine. It felt like living with a roommate. Jennifer kept sending money to Monica. I stopped asking about it. I stopped asking about a lot of things. We existed in the same house, but we barely spoke. She ate dinner in front of the TV. I ate at the kitchen table. She went to bed early. I stayed up late. I told myself it would pass, that we just needed time to adjust. Then I found the email. I wasn't snooping. Jennifer had asked me to print something from her laptop while she was at work. I opened her email, searched for the attachment, and saw a name I didn't recognize in her inbox. A man's name, David. I shouldn't have clicked it, but I did. The email was short, friendly, too friendly. He was thanking her for coffee, saying he'd enjoyed their conversation, hoping they could do it again soon. I scrolled up, found another email, then another. They'd been talking for months. Nothing explicit, nothing I could point to and call proof. But the tone was wrong. The frequency was wrong. They were meeting for coffee every week. Sometimes twice a week. I felt something hollow open in my chest. I closed the laptop, printed the document she'd asked for, left it on the counter. Didn't say a word when she got home. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the stock, thinking about how I'd kept it hidden for 26 years, thinking about how it had felt like insurance. And now, for the first time, I was grateful I had. I started paying closer attention. Jennifer came home later and later. She started dressing differently, not provocatively, just differently. She wore perfume when she went to the library. She smiled at her phone. She stopped asking me how my day was. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse her. I just watched. One evening, about 3 months after I found the email, she came into the living room and sat down across from me. Her face was calm, too calm. "I think we need to talk," she said. I muted the TV. "Okay. I'm not happy." I didn't respond. "I haven't been happy for a while, and I don't think you have either. What are you saying?" She took a breath. "I think we should separate." The word felt distant, abstract, like she was talking about someone else's marriage. "I've been talking to a lawyer," she continued, "just to understand my options. I'm not trying to hurt you. I just think we've grown apart. Because of Monica," I said quietly. "This isn't about Monica." "Then what is it about?" She looked away. "It's about us. About how we don't connect anymore. About how I feel judged every time I try to help my family. I never judged you. You did. You do. And I can't live like that." I wanted to ask about David, about the emails, about the coffee dates, but I didn't, because part of me already knew, and part of me didn't want to hear her lie. "Fine," I said. "If that's what you want." She looked surprised, like she'd expected me to fight. "I think it's best." "Then let's do it." She hired a lawyer. I hired one too, a man named Richard, mid-50s, quiet, efficient. I told him everything, about the stock, about how it was in my name only, about how I'd never commingled it with our joint assets. "That should protect it," he said. "But we'll need to be careful. If she can argue you used marital funds to acquire it, or if you ever deposited dividends into a joint account, it gets complicated." "I didn't." "Then you're in a good position." Jennifer's lawyer filed for divorce. The paperwork arrived 3 weeks later. She was asking for half of everything: the house, the retirement account. She even wanted half of my pension. I wasn't surprised, but I was calm. Her lawyer sent an interrogatory, a long list of questions about assets, income, debts. I answered every question truthfully. I disclosed the stock. Jennifer called me the day her lawyer told her about it. "You've had company stock this whole time?" Her voice was shaking, not with sadness, with anger. "Yes." "How much?" "That's between me and my lawyer." "How much?" I didn't answer. She hung up. 2 days later, her lawyer filed a motion claiming I had hidden assets, claiming I had defrauded her, claiming the stock should be considered marital property because I acquired it during our marriage. Richard wasn't worried. "You opened the account before you were married. The contributions came from your paycheck, which was your separate property under state law. You never commingled it. She doesn't have a case." He was right. The judge reviewed the documentation, the dates, the account statements. He ruled in my favor. The stock was mine, entirely. Jennifer was entitled to half of the joint savings, half of the equity in the house, and a portion of my pension. But the stock, the thing that had allowed me to retire at 53, stayed with me. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Jennifer moved out the day the papers were signed. She took her half of the furniture, her books, her clothes. She didn't say goodbye. I stayed in the house, paid off the remaining mortgage with a small portion of the stock, lived quietly. I heard through mutual friends that she moved in with David 3 months later, that she was happy, that they were planning a future together. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired. I thought about the years I'd worked, the years I'd saved, the quiet discipline it took to build something that no one else could see. I thought about how Jennifer had wanted me to be different, more generous, more open, more willing to pour everything out without holding anything back. But I had learned a long time ago that not everyone deserves to see everything you have. Some things you keep for yourself, not out of cruelty, not out of spite, but out of survival. I still live in the same house. I still run in the mornings. I still read. I travel a little more now. I've thought about dating, but I'm not sure I'm ready. Maybe I never will be. Sometimes I wonder if I should have told Jennifer about the stock. If things would have been different, if she would have stayed. But I don't think she would have, because the stock wasn't the problem. The problem was that she had stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as an obstacle. The problem was that she wanted someone who would give without limits, without boundaries, without self-preservation. And I couldn't be that person. I think about my father sometimes, about the studio apartment, about the way he looked at 69, starting over with nothing, about how he told me, near the end of his life, that the worst part wasn't losing the money. It was losing the belief that the person he loved had ever really seen him. I didn't lose everything. I didn't have to start over, because a long time ago, I made a decision to protect myself, to keep something separate, to build a foundation that couldn't be shaken by someone else's choices. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't trusting, but it was smart. And when everything fell apart, when Jennifer walked out the door with half of what we'd built together, I still had the other half, the part she never knew about, the part that had always been mine. I don't tell people this story. I don't need their judgment or their approval. I made my choices. I lived with the consequences, and I'm still here, still standing, still whole. That's enough. Some people will say I was wrong to hide the stock, that a marriage should be built on total transparency. Maybe they're right. Maybe in a perfect world, with a perfect partner, that's how it works. But I don't live in a perfect world. And neither did my father. I live in a world where people change, where love isn't always enough, where the person who promises to stand beside you can walk away the moment things get hard. And in that world, the only person you can truly count on is yourself. I learned that lesson early. I applied it quietly. And when the test came, I passed. Not because I was cruel, not because I was vindictive, but because I was prepared. Jennifer moved on. She built a new life with David. I hope she's happy. I genuinely do. But I also know that if things don't work out with him, if he disappoints her, if he fails to meet her expectations, if he draws a boundary she doesn't like, she'll move on again. Because that's who she became. Someone who measures love by compliance, by how much you're willing to give up. I was never going to win that game, so I stopped playing. I kept what was mine. I honored the agreements we made. I gave her what the law said she deserved, but I didn't give her everything, and I don't feel guilty about that, because the stock wasn't just money. It was a choice I made at 27 years old to take care of my future self, to build something that couldn't be taken from me, to make sure I never ended up like my father. Jennifer wanted access to that. She wanted to decide what happened to it. She wanted control, but it was never hers to control. And when she realized that, when her lawyer told her the judge's ruling, when she understood that I had kept this one thing separate for 26 years, she felt betrayed. But I wasn't the one who betrayed us. She was. She was the one who stopped seeing me, who stopped valuing what we had, who found someone else while we were still married, who walked away the moment she had an exit plan. I just made sure the exit didn't cost me everything. I sit on my porch most evenings now, watch the sun go down, listen to the quiet. I'm not lonely. I'm not bitter. I'm just here. And that's more than a lot of men my age can say, because I didn't lose myself in someone else. I didn't sacrifice my security for the illusion of partnership. I didn't give everything away and hope it would be enough. I kept something back. just enough, just in case. And when just in case became reality, I was ready. That's not cruelty. That's not deception. That's survival. And I'm still here, still whole, still standing, with or without her. I remember that detail because she told me later it was the only yellow thing she owned. She'd bought it specifically for the event. We talked for 3 hours that day, about nothing important, about movies and music and places we wanted to travel. She laughed at my jokes. I liked the way she listened, really listened, not just waiting for her turn to speak. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to build something first, a foundation. I had watched too many of my friends get married young, struggle with money, and grow to resent each other. I didn't want that. By the time we married, I had been with the company for 4 years. The stock program was already in place. I had accumulated a modest amount, nothing life-changing, but it was there, growing quietly in the background. I never sat Jennifer down and said, "I have this separate account." It never came up. We combined our checking accounts, we bought a house together, we made decisions together, but the stock just existed separately. In my mind, it was part of my job, part of what I did before her. It didn't feel relevant. Years passed. We had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. We raised them in the suburbs. Soccer games and dance recitals and parent-teacher conferences. Jennifer was a good mother, patient, attentive. She quit her job when our son was born, stayed home for 6 years, then went back part-time when our daughter started school. Money was never tight, but it was never abundant either. We budgeted, we planned, we saved what we could, and all the while the stock kept growing. The company kept performing. I kept contributing. Small amounts, automatic deductions. I barely noticed them. Jennifer never asked about my paycheck. We had agreed early on that as long as the bills were paid and we were saving a little each month, the specifics didn't matter. That system worked for us. For a long time. When the kids left for college, something shifted. The house felt emptier, quieter. Jennifer started spending more time with her friends, book clubs, yoga classes, volunteering at the library. I was happy for her. I thought it was healthy. But I also started noticing that we weren't talking as much. Not about anything important. We'd discuss logistics. Who was picking up groceries, when the next HOA meeting was. But we stopped asking each other deeper questions. We stopped wondering what the other person was thinking. I told myself it was normal, that all marriages go through phases, that we'd reconnect eventually. But then I retired, and suddenly I was home all the time. And she was still out, still busy, still scheduling her life around everything except me. At first I tried to join her. I went to a book club meeting once, sat in a circle with 8 women discussing a novel I hadn't read. They were polite, but I could tell I didn't belong. Jennifer smiled at me from across the room, but it was the kind of smile you give a child who's trying their best. I didn't go back. I tried suggesting things we could do together. Day trips, museums, hikes. She always had a reason why it wouldn't work. She had plans with her sister. She had a commitment at the library. She was tired. After a while, I stopped asking. That's when Monica's calls started becoming more frequent. At first, it was every few months, then every month, then every couple of weeks. And each time, the amount Jennifer sent got a little bigger, a little harder to justify. I tried to be understanding. I knew Monica had struggled, failed businesses, bad relationships, health problems, but at some point, helping becomes enabling. At some point, you have to let people face their own consequences. Jennifer didn't see it that way. She's family, she'd say. You don't turn your back on family. But I never asked her to turn her back. I just asked her to set a limit, to say, I can help you this much, but not more, to protect what we had built. She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. The arguments became a pattern. Monica would call. Jennifer would send money. I would notice. I would bring it up carefully. Jennifer would get defensive. We'd argue. Then we'd go silent for days. I started sleeping in the guest room, not because she asked me to, but because the tension in our bedroom was suffocating. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe, and feel like I was next to a stranger. One night, about 8 months after I retired, I couldn't sleep. It was 2 in the morning. I went downstairs to make tea. Jennifer's phone was on the kitchen counter. It lit up with a text message. I didn't pick it up, but I saw the name, David. The message preview said, "Still thinking about our conversation. You were right." I stood there for a long time, staring at that screen, waiting for it to go dark, wondering what conversation she'd had with a man I'd never heard of, wondering what she'd been right about. I didn't confront her. I didn't know what to confront her about, but something in me shifted. Some instinct that had kept me safe my whole life woke up, and I started paying attention. I noticed she was texting more, smiling at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I noticed she started talking about a new friend from the library, someone who appreciated her recommendation, someone who got her taste in books. She never said his name, but I knew. I could have asked. I could have demanded to see her phone, to know who David was, to understand what was happening, but I didn't, because deep down, I already knew. And I knew that confronting her would force a conversation I wasn't ready to have, a conversation that would end in ultimatums, in confessions, in the kind of damage you can't take back. so I stayed quiet. I kept watching, and I started thinking about the stock. I hadn't checked the balance in years. It was automatic. Quarterly statements came in the mail. I filed them without reading them. But one afternoon, alone in the house, I logged into the account. The balance was higher than I remembered, significantly higher. The stock had split again the previous year. The company had acquired a competitor. The value had nearly doubled in 18 months. What had been a comfortable cushion was now something substantial. I sat there, staring at the screen, and felt a strange sense of relief, not because of the money itself, but because I realized I had options. If Jennifer wanted to leave, if she wanted to pursue whatever she was pursuing with David, I wouldn't be destroyed. I wouldn't end up like my father. That realization changed everything. I stopped arguing with Jennifer about Monica. I stopped trying to save our marriage. I just let go. I moved through the house like a guest, polite, distant, waiting. Jennifer noticed. I could tell. She'd look at me sometimes with this confused expression, like she wanted me to fight, like she wanted me to care. But I was done fighting. I was done caring. I was just protecting myself. When she finally told me she wanted to separate, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a quiet inevitability, like watching a storm you knew was coming. The divorce process was mechanical. Lawyers, paperwork, asset division. I answered every question truthfully. I disclosed everything I was legally required to disclose. When Jennifer's lawyer demanded financial records, I provided them. When they asked about the stock, I explained that it was a separate asset acquired before our marriage, maintained in my name only, never commingled with marital funds. Her lawyer argued. Of course he did. He tried to claim it was marital property because I acquired it during our marriage. He tried to claim I should have disclosed it earlier. He tried to paint me as deceptive, but the facts were on my side. The stock was open 2 years before we married. Every contribution came from my paycheck, which under state law was my separate property. I never deposited dividends into our joint account. I never used marital funds to purchase additional shares. I never even mentioned it, not because I was hiding it, but because it was mine. It had always been mine. The judge agreed. I sat in the courtroom the day he delivered his ruling. Jennifer was across the room with her lawyer. She didn't look at me, not once. The judge explained that while the stock had grown during our marriage, the initial investment and all subsequent contributions were made from separate property. There was no legal basis to claim it as marital. Jennifer's lawyer asked for a recess, asked to reconsider. The judge denied it. It was over. Jennifer got half of our joint saving, half the equity in the house, a portion of my pension. It was fair. It was what the law required. But the stock stayed with me, all of it. When we left the courthouse, Jennifer was crying, not sad crying, angry crying. Her lawyer was talking to her in a low voice, trying to calm her down. I walked to my car alone, drove home alone, sat in the driveway for a long time before going inside. The house felt different that day, lighter, emptier. I didn't celebrate, I didn't call anyone. I just made dinner, ate it at the kitchen table, watched the sun go down, and I felt okay. Not happy, not vindicated, just okay. Jennifer moved out 2 weeks later. She hired movers, took her half of everything, furniture, dishes, photos. She packed up her entire life and left. I helped carry some of the boxes to the truck. We didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. When the last box was loaded, she stood in the driveway, looking at the house. She looked small, tired. "I hope you're happy," she said quietly. I didn't respond. She got in her car and drove away. I stood there for a while, watching the empty street. Then I went inside, closed the door, locked it, and I was alone. The first few weeks were strained. I didn't know what to do with all the space, all the quiet. I moved through the rooms, rearranging furniture, filling the gaps Jennifer had left. I bought new dishes, new towels. I repainted the bedroom. I threw out old photos, not out of anger, just out of necessity. I needed the house to feel like mine. Slowly, it did. I started a new routine. Morning runs, breakfast at the kitchen table, reading in the afternoon. I joined a gym, started going to a coffee shop downtown. I wasn't looking to meet anyone. I just wanted to be around people. One day, I ran into an old colleague, someone I'd worked with years ago. We caught up. He told me about his own divorce, his own restart. We laughed about how strange it was to be single again in our 50s. "You doing okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "I am." And I meant it, because I was okay. I wasn't broken. I wasn't destroyed. I was just different. I had learned something important, something my father never learned. You don't have to give everything to everyone. You don't have to sacrifice yourself to prove your love. You don't have to pour yourself out until there's nothing left. You're allowed to keep something for yourself. You're allowed to protect your future. You're allowed to walk away from people who take more than they give, even if that person is your wife. Jennifer found out about David becoming serious about 6 months after the divorce. A mutual friend mentioned it casually. They were moving in together, planning a future. I didn't feel anything when I heard. No jealousy, no regret. I just hoped she'd learned something too. But I doubted it, because the problem was never me. The problem was that Jennifer believed love meant access, that marriage meant ownership, that being together meant having a claim to everything the other person had. And I never believed that. I believed in partnership, in shared goals, in building something together. But I also believed in boundaries, in self-preservation, in making sure that no matter what happened, I'd be okay. The stock gave me that. It gave me the ability to walk away with dignity, to start over without starting from zero, to rebuild without resentment. And I don't regret keeping it separate, not for a second, because in the end, it wasn't about the money. It was about agency, about control, about knowing that I had something that couldn't be taken from me. Jennifer wanted to take everything. She wanted half of what we'd built together, and she wanted half of what I'd built alone. But the law said no, and I said no, and that made all the difference. I still live in the same house. I've made it mine now. New furniture, new routines, new memories. I'm not looking for another relationship, maybe someday, but not now. Right now, I'm content with the quiet, with the space, with the freedom to make decisions without negotiating, without compromising, without worrying that someone will resent me for protecting myself. I think about Jennifer sometime. I wonder if she's happy with David, if he gives her what she wanted, if she ever thinks about the years we had. But I don't dwell on it, because my life didn't end when she left. It didn't even pause. It just continued, quietly, steadily, on my terms. And that's enough. More than enough. It's everything.